The skies above Apokolips burned with hellish fire, its crimson glow illuminating a world where pain was law and oppression was the only truth. Towers of black stone stretched into the storm-racked heavens, casting long, jagged shadows over the tortured landscape. Rivers of molten fire pulsed through the city like the veins of a living beast, feeding the great furnaces that fueled Darkseid's war machine. The cries of the damned echoed endlessly, a chorus of suffering conducted by the Lord of Apokolips himself. Darkseid stood atop the highest tower, his massive frame outlined by the infernal glow of his domain. His crimson eyes burned with cold intelligence, scanning the endless void beyond his world. He had sensed it, a presence of raw, uncontrollable destruction, something unlike any other force he had encountered. It was not the presence of a god, nor a mortal champion. It was a thing that knew neither reason nor restraint, a beast of carnage. Doomsday had come. A boom tube split the air, its warping energy cracking through the obsidian walls of Darkseid Citadel. From within the swirling vortex of time and space, a massive figure emerged, its silhouette barely distinguishable in the flickering light. Then it stepped forward, revealing a monstrous form, a towering colossus of bone and muscle, its jagged exoskeleton bristling with spikes. Its crimson eyes held no thought, no reasoning, only pure, endless rage. The parademons swarmed like insects, their wings flapping frantically as they encircled the intruder. Spears of concentrated energy were launched from the towers, streaking toward the abomination with the force of collapsing stars. But Doomsday did not stop. The moment the first parade mon drew close, he moved with unnatural speed, his clawed hands swiping through the air, shredding the winged creature into bloody mist. Another followed, and another, each torn apart before they could even react. The energy blast slammed into them from all directions, but the creature barely registered them. He charged forward, his monstrous feet cracking the black stone beneath him. The ground quaked as he moved, and those parademons unlucky enough to stand in his way were trampled, their armor and bodies crushed into the unyielding rock. Darkseid watched in silence, his expression unreadable. He had faced countless challengers, had crushed entire civilizations beneath his heel, but there was something different about this. This was not a being that fought for power, for revenge, or even for survival. This thing fought because it was all it knew. Doomsday's rampage continued until he reached the great gates of the Citadel. Massive, unbreakable structures forged from the heart of a dying star. They had withstood the force of cosmic sieges and the wrath of gods. But when Doomsday's fist struck, the gates cracked. A second strike sent fissures spiraling outward. A third shattered them completely, sending molten shards raining down like meteors. From the throne chamber, Darkseid finally moved. He stepped forward, his heavy boots echoing across the stone. His cape billowed behind him as he descended the steps, his gaze locked onto the advancing horror. The Lord of Apokolips did not raise an army. He did not summon his war machines. This battle was his alone. Doomsday snarled, his breath steaming in the cold night air. His fists clenched, his entire body pulsing with anticipation. For the first time in a long time, he had found something that would not run, would not break immediately. Darkseid's eyes burned red, his voice a deep rumble of absolute authority. Kneel. Doomsday roared in response and charged. Darkseid's eyes narrowed. Then, with a mere flick of his wrist, the Omega beams erupted from his gaze, streaking toward Doomsday with an unerring, inevitable wrath. The air burned, space itself twisted, and the ground split beneath the sheer force of the attack. The beam struck. For a moment, nothing moved. The dust settled, revealing a deep crater where Doomsday once stood. But then, from within the smoke, a shadow loomed. Doomsday stepped forward, his body scorched but intact, his red eyes locked onto Darkseid's. He was still standing, and he was smiling. The air crackled with the violent energy of their clash. The ground beneath them trembled as Darkseid's Omega beams continued to strike with relentless precision. But Doomsday did not falter. Each beam seared through his monstrous form, scarring him deeply. Yet with every strike, Doomsday evolved. His flesh hardened, his bone structure reinforced, and his healing factor pushed him forward. Each hit making him stronger, faster, more brutal than before. Darkseid's lips curled into a rare sneer as he watched Doomsday charge, unaffected by the very force that had once obliterated entire gods. The Tyrant's mind raced. This was no ordinary foe. No being could endure the Omega beams and come back stronger. Yet there he was, Doomsday, the abomination that had killed Superman, adapting with every wound, growing unstoppable. "You should have stayed in the darkness, beast," Darkseid muttered, raising his arms. The Omega beams flickered and shifted, now shifting to an even deadlier form. Darkseid was no mere brute. He was the embodiment of the Omega effect itself, and he had never met a foe who could so directly challenge it. Doomsday continued his relentless charge, his massive fists rising to meet the oncoming beams. When the two forces collided, it was a clash of cosmic might against pure unrelenting rage. The resulting explosion shook Apokolips to its core, sending shockwaves across the universe. For a moment, the very fabric of reality bent, torn apart by the force of the battle. Yet when the dust cleared, it was Doomsday who remained standing. Darkseid's eyes flashed in frustration. His arms trembled as he absorbed the impact of his failed attack. The damage was significant, but it was not enough to stop him. However, as he refocused his gaze on his foe, he saw the brutal truth. The Omega beams could not defeat Doomsday. Not permanently. Not anymore. Doomsday, dripping with dark energy, snarled as he closed the distance. His clawed hands reached for Darkseid, each step an earthquake. His strength, already legendary, was now almost beyond belief. Every punch he landed sent shockwaves across the barren land of Apokolips, each blow sending fragments of stone and shattered parademons flying through the air. Darkseid raised a hand in defense, trying to summon the Omega effect once more, but before he could react, Doomsday was upon him. The beast's monstrous fist struck Darkseid square in the chest, sending the Tyrant tumbling backward. The force of the blow left an imprint on the ground, a crater deep enough to swallow entire armies. Darkseid groaned in pain, but his invulnerability held. He staggered to his feet, his chest heaving as he prepared for another round. The god of Apokolips glared up at Doomsday, eyes glowing with untamed fury. "You will regret this, abomination." Darkseid's voice was a low, guttural growl. "I am the end of all things. I will erase you from existence." But before Darkseid could summon the full might of his power, Doomsday was upon him again. The beast leaped into the air, his colossal frame casting a terrifying shadow over the darkened battlefield. His fist descended like a comet, crashing directly onto Darkseid's skull. The ground shook violently beneath them as the impact reverberated through the cosmos. For the first time in eons, Darkseid's armor cracked. A deep, thunderous crack split across his head, and the Tyrant was driven to his knees. A great gasp echoed from Darkseid's lips. He had never felt true fear before, but now, for the briefest moment, he realized the extent of his foe's power. Doomsday stood over him, towering, his chest rising and falling with primal rage. The beast raised a foot, bringing it down upon Darkseid with crushing force. Darkseid managed to summon a shield of Omega energy just in time, but it was too weak. The shield shattered, and the full weight of Doomsday's blow struck him. The ground erupted as Darkseid was sent careening backward, his body skidding across the earth. The Tyrant's helmet cracked further, exposing his bloodied face. He groaned, feeling the sting of defeat creeping into his mind. He rose slowly, the weight of the battle taking its toll. His strength, though vast, was fading. Each blow from Doomsday chipped away at him, and his body, even under the protection of his cosmic godhood, was not immune to the monstrous force before him. Doomsday wasn't simply a creature of strength. He was a living weapon, evolving with every attack. The beast was nearly unstoppable, And Darkseid, god of Apokolips, was beginning to understand that for the first time. With a roar, Doomsday launched himself once again, arms outstretched, intent on finishing what he had started. Darkseid's Omega beams crackled once more, but it was too late. Before the beams could even fire, Doomsday was already upon him. With a final, devastating blow, Doomsday struck Darkseid's chest with an earth-shattering punch, sending the Tyrant crashing into the distant mountains of Apokolips. For a moment, everything was still. The dust settled, and the sound of crashing stone faded. Darkseid, god of Apokolips, lay broken and defeated, his body a shadow of its former self. His chest heaved with labored breaths, and his once pristine armor was now shattered beyond recognition. The fight was over. Doomsday had won,